Oh my gosh, I didn't have my mic on. All right, let's start that all again. I hope you have your coffee. I clearly need to drink mine. Welcome to Paint Fumes Thursday morning live stream. I'm Lynell Ingram, the artist and crazy person running things over here. I think that, yes, I'm sorry, awkwardly brilliant, welcome. I am just full of technical issues this morning. First, I didn't hit the stream button, and then I didn't have my mic off of mute. So, apologies. But good morning. It's, I'm going to be working on this giant painting that I've been working on and off on stream a little bit, and working off of stream on as well. I'm determined to get it done. I will be working on some textural, large color image areas of it, like the more mixed media type stuff today. Let me take a moment and drink some coffee so I can gather myself together. It's a beautiful summer day, but the air quality where I am is terrible, and it has been for a few days. So it's been mostly staying indoors with the AC on to try to control the air quality indoors. Okay, so for the painting, one thing that I would like to do on this is to, I'm going to draw in some like circles that were going to be semi-solid colors. They're going to be coming off the edges, some larger ones, and they're larger than I can do with a compass. So I'm going to use a pencil and a string and get a little old school here. And hopefully my cat won't be mad that I'm borrowing his ribbon to do this. Any ribbons or strings around here, if they don't automatically belong to him, they get claimed by him very quickly. Okay. So that will do the trick. And then it's sort of just a matter of deciding what my radius is going to be and where the center of the circle is. So I'm thinking about here, if I hold my pencil pretty upright. The hardest thing, that didn't work so well, is that I have to hold my pencil at the same direction and level of, and I did not there, so we're going to try again. Might need to just kind of pull it out like that. Oh. Then that happens. You know, some days things just don't go, things just aren't going to go according to plan. That's okay. That's the story of my life. All right, where were we? Where were we? I was drawing from about this point. Let's try again. Third time's a charm, right? All right, maybe I won't use this pencil to do it then. We'll try something else. Great idea. Great idea, badly executed. You know what we could do? Let's go nuts. Let's use a pastel. I think that might be easier as long as I can maintain my little tie on here. So we're going to give this a shot. All right, fourth time, maybe? Let's see. All right, that actually worked. You probably can't see it very well. It's a pretty light line. It's just marked in to give me the guide for painting inside of. And I'm probably going to do one more down towards the bottom here. Let me loosen this a hair. I'm going to put one over here. I'm going to mark out, I'm not going to draw over her face, I'm going to let that stay like above it, but the circle shape will be coming out behind her. Like her face will be floating in front of it. Okay, you might actually see that one with the camera a little bit. That one's clearer, bigger. And then one more much smaller one that will overlap towards the top. Perhaps. Out here. Okay, I actually like that one better than the first one I drew, so I think I'm just gonna do something different for my first one. This is the creative process. It's just doing, redoing, reevaluating, doing it again. So let's do one more, then I'm gonna go up higher. I think I can work with that. And what started out as just being, I'm going to do like 2 of these, has now gone completely off the rails. Okay. I've got those shapes down. Yeah, it's not real obvious on the camera, but this is just to give me guidelines for where I will be painting. And I think I'm actually going to put down some masking tape. At least on the one on the bottom, I'm going to mask it out so that I can try to be a little bit precise with my angles. Of course, it's not going to be super precise because the tape is, you know, I gotta try to make it work on a curve here. So just try things and figure it out. And if it doesn't work perfectly, it's okay. Gotta kind of allow the tape to wrinkle on itself so that I can actually get a bit of a curved shape there. All right. As I lose my tape. Okay. So we're gonna get a quick kind of down and dirty mask on here. I don't need it to be absolutely perfect, but I want it to be fairly accurate. With a big painting like this, as somebody who's anything but a realism painter, it's okay for things to not be so, like, sometimes it's more the idea that comes across, because it's not really meant to be looked at and examined super close, which of course can be, we do that with paintings, but it's more important that it's clear when you step away from it than it being super detailed and accurate when you look at it up close, but if you step away from it by few feet, yards, meters, whatever, that it doesn't come together as a whole, that's more problematic. So it's like when I did design work, and occasionally I'd have to design outdoor signs. It's really easy to say, oh, this reads fine, this reads great, when you're looking at it on your screen and the sign is this big. But when somebody's driving down the street, moving fast at a quick rate, and it's actually maybe like 4 feet by 4 feet or something like that, is it actually readable? It's a very different kind of readability we're talking about when you're working with scales and where people would most likely be looking at something from. So just random, interesting things to think about if you work large or small, or I mean, I suppose it'd almost be the same with any kind of medium. If you play music to big crowds of people, rowdy places where people are drinking, you need the music to probably be kind of forceful and loud, whereas, you know, a string quartet is probably a little bit more of an intimate, quieter thing when you're playing to your audience. I don't know, maybe I'm pushing it and losing my analogy. It's very possible, but you know. Okay, a little bit more at the bottom. Move that so I can actually get down here to this point. That's good enough for the curve at that scale, but let me get the rest of the face kind of curved out here. All right, that'll do for this. The next step is going to be making a giant mess. I am going to try to reach over to the side here. I've got myself locked in a little bit with the cables and things. So, excuse me for a second. Giant plastic drop cloth. Actually, it's like if you need a cheap thing to protect anything that you're painting against, this is just like $1 cheapo party tablecloth. I inherited these from when my mom downsized her house and she was getting rid of stuff. I grabbed anything like that because it's perfect for use here, especially rather than have it thrown away. I absolutely recognize that it's not a terribly green option, but since it already existed, I'm going to use it, and I reuse it until it's not usable anymore. So here's where we're going to do something a little nutty. Okay. Spray paint. This is Gloss Mambo Pink. I'm gonna move my mic for a second. Sorry if that was loud at all, but I don't want to get the paint on it or anything. Come on. There we go. Let's see how this goes. Yeah, because, you know, our quality's already great, right? Okay, so that's kind of what I was looking to do. Let me get a little bit up here, too. I wasn't going for a full solid fill. You can still kind of see some of the things going on behind it. But that's kind of the idea of what I'm going for there. So, peel that right off. Let me grab my trash can. And just put it right in there because it's not dry yet. I don't think it'll take a terribly long time to dry. I should have had that matted a little further out, but it's fine. There's like a little bit of a dust line here where it got on the other side of the tape, but I will make that work in other ways. Again, this is my creative process. Very messy. Little bit of a plan, but mostly not. Just thought of, hey, let's see what'll happen. I'll probably paint back in a little bit of some of her hair strands. Got a little run over here. But like I said, I'm not looking for perfection in any of this. Just looking for feeling and statement and like an overall kind of thing. And you guys don't have exactly the most flattering view of my studio from where I have the camera set up. The more attractive area is everywhere the camera isn't pointing. This is just doors, closets, window behind me. So, but you know, that is the reality of the space. Some of it looks good for filming or taking photos, and some of it doesn't, and that's just for real. Good morning, Jim. Good to see you. I'm just over here making a mess. And giving myself lots of technical problems this morning. It's been a great start. But yeah, where is my coffee? Keep setting things down in random places because I'm focused on other things. Yeah, I already broke out the spray paint here. So I like that quite a bit. So I drew a bunch of circles up here, and I probably will do a spray approach to at least one of them, maybe two, but not all of them. I think I might just simply paint in one or two, maybe more, actually more solidly. So that means paint. What color? I actually kind of leaning towards maybe like a more lime green, which I would see how it goes to mix some cadmium for yellow light with some yellow green. Or maybe just some straight chromium oxide green. This might have too much white in it. Let's see what happens. Move the string. My cat had needed to come and see what was going on when I was spraying. But then once he saw, he's like, okay, out of here. Bye. Boring. They're fun. All right, this might not be enough paint, but we're gonna start here and see. I just have some green and yellow here, and I'm just gonna start pulling my green into my yellow and see, and try to make a decent amount of it. So here, probably see better with this camera, maybe, just due to lighting and such. There we go. I think this is probably about what I want, which is a little more intense than any of the greens that are going on in here. A little bit. So this is going to go in a circle here. And try, I'm not going to bother masking this one because I can just use my brush and follow the line pretty easily. Kind of like with the other circle, I'm going to have it be a little bit more solid at the edges and a little bit more, and less so as I get towards the back of it. And actually, fill that overlap spot in a little bit. But I do want to be able to see where that line is, because I'm going to treat that differently. The line here where they connect the two circles in that space. And same down on the bottom part. That's the light. I started with these in mind as primarily a graphical element, as something that's kind of coming in from all sides, perhaps a little oppressive, but also very bright and colorful. And as I was doing so, it started to remind me of lily pads. So I'm kind of thinking about it a little bit differently now. So I'm using kind of a dry brush method here. To blend out the paint. Keep doing that, sorry. That's my light, my brush hitting my lamp. Though I gotta say, best thing that I came across as an idea and implemented in my studio when I was kind of redoing it this last time was definitely putting the lights on the wall like this. These desk lamps, gooseneck desk lamps, these are just game changers to have them there. Where I can move them around as needed. So it's been great for both painting and taking video or photos either one. It helps with being able to like create directional lighting or focus on areas. I'm no lighting expert by a long shot, not even close, but those do help me be a little less inept with my lighting. Okay. Kind of looks like a tennis ball at the moment with the way that those lights are, the way that the circles are overlapping, but that will change a bit. Okay, so I am going to go on to, I'm going to take what's remaining of my green paint here, and I'm going to use that on, I think, the circle here. And this one is actually pretty much the same color as the green behind it, which might have an interesting effect. We'll see how that goes. If it doesn't work for me, easy enough to change it. Let it dry, paint over it. It's the thing about acrylic paint. It is interesting to learn the differences, the pros and cons of working with different types of mediums. Because I really learned acrylic growing up, and I never used watercolor. Like I had, oops, that was the wrong color. When I was in college, I had a friend that worked a lot with watercolor. She just knew how to use it from her life before college, and she showed me some things, and I played with it a little bit, but I never really took to it. And it's been much more recently that I've really revisited it and made it, like in the last few years, that's become a primary medium for me. And I very recently started fooling around and trying out oil paints, and that's kind of magical stuff. And I have still a lot of learning and practice to get from using those for sure, but there are still different advantages to even acrylic paints. And the main reason that it was the primary thing that I used when I was in college was because I majored in illustration, and in that field of work, you need to be able to turn around your creative work very quickly. And acrylic paint is much more built for that than oil painting would be. So I never had the opportunity to play with oils, and I was always a little intimidated by it. And then one day last year I just went and bought like a real basic set, and I'm like, let's see what happens. And I fell in love with that too. And you know what, I need to do more playing with it. I have one piece I've been working on, and I kind of made a mistake and put on a layer that was very oil heavy. And so I've been waiting for that layer to dry before I continue on with it for what I'm trying to do at this stage of the game. And it's, you know, it's been like 8 weeks, it's still tacky. But there's no reason I couldn't try with another piece. Okay, the added win to that circle is that the webbing, the textures, the water textures that were right there were some of the most problematic to me that I really didn't care for, and that, hey, look it, they're gone. Magic. I'm going to do a little bit more of a dry brush approach leading up to where these shapes start to intersect with each other. This is a more, because it doesn't have the yellow in it, the yellow is much more transparent. This is just straight green color, and it's not nearly as transparent. taking it up a little bit into where these two circles intersected. Oh, that light. I have it much closer to the painting than I normally would for the sake of helping the camera pick up more detail. But that doesn't help for when I'm painting around it. I keep clanging my brush into it. So because that green wasn't doing great for transparency, I've just straight mixed the two colors on my palette and I'm just putting them on directly that way. So instead of having the colors blend together through transparency on the canvas, they're just literally blended together. All right. How's that looking? The camera kind of is losing the green in here. It looks like, from what the camera is seeing, that it's blending together into the white where you just have the little edge, but while I don't think that's actually the case, I'm going to add a little bit more green. This is chromium oxide green that I'm using. So many of the greens that you buy in the tubes are very blue. And I never like to use those. I'd rather just mix my own greens most of the time. But this one is one I actually don't mind using. I don't suppose it works for every application that you might want a green right out of the tube, but it is the same thing with every color. Get a sharper edge along here. That's getting real fuzzy. All right. So that's a little better, maybe. Still looks like there's a line on the outline. Let's see. How does that look? A little better? Okay, I think I might be happy with that for now. See if this is dry. Tacky. Almost dry. Let me look at this for a second. This is I need to check. I should have looked at this beforehand, probably. Safe. All right, I'm trying to see if this is like a water-based or oil-based. Where would it say? I might just have to look it up online. But being the case, if this is oil-based, then I will need to use anything that goes over this area will need to be oil-based paint. Because oil can go over other things, but other things can't necessarily go over oil. Alright. Yeah, making things happen. Okay. Looking for a safe place to set my coffee. I do feel like I need to come up with some form of being able to play music when I'm streaming. I know it's real tricky because of copyrights and things like that, but it seems like it would be nice for these long streams. So I should probably look into that a little bit more. Alright, I have also a few more pieces of cut out bits of papers and things to possibly incorporate, and I do have some ideas for getting some dimensional things coming off the canvas too, but I need to work those ideas out a little bit more. I would know how to do it if I did it with paper, but I'm not sure that I want to utilize paper. I might prefer to utilize canvas, because paper, I'm not sure. I worry about how it will hold up. Because it's probably, like, it would make it really difficult to put glass in front of it if it's dimensional coming off the piece. So canvas would be a much more sturdy thing to use. So I will need to think on it a little bit. Either canvas or fabric, some kind of fabric maybe even. And that, if that's the case, if I decide to use just a fabric instead of canvas, I would probably need to go get what I would want for that. I have a little bit of fabric here, but it's stuff that I bought with the intention of making shirts out of, which I haven't done yet. So it probably isn't the right kind of fabric, the right consistency or weight. Okay. Where's my stuff? Okay. I'm going to use, instead of my adhesive, my neutral pH adhesive that I usually use for these things, I'm going to use my golden gel medium, just a gloss gel medium. So this will work just as well for incorporating pieces onto the canvas, and also still be archival and such. It will be fine for that. Now, if I want to adhere anything in this area, unless I look it up and it turns out that it's water-based, I can still use my pH neutral adhesive. It's just adhesive. I don't know what else to call it. That's all it says. Yeah, neutral pH adhesive. That's it. I can still use that on the area with oil paint. I did look that up before, and I'm pretty sure that's what I found out, but I will verify before I do anything. So I don't want to make any kind of mistake like that is very difficult to correct. So I'm gonna add some little bits up in this corner. The idea of having a place for your eyes to rest in your work is not something that I tend to concern myself with too much, because that usually isn't, like, the chaos is kind of the idea of it, you know? So I never worry that much about that, but I do think about flow, and I do think about slowing the gaze in areas, such as where the figure is kind of monochromatic and subdued and softly done, which contrasts with very graphical, hard ripped edges and text and things that are going on in other areas. So just adding a few bits more texture. Try to apply these kind of quickly so that they don't have a chance to, like, inconsistently bubble up from the moisture, because it's just thin bits of, like, magazine paper, which is, all the modern stuff is very thin and flimsy. One more piece that I'd like to do some ripping apart on. I don't usually like to have too clean of edges, like where it looks like I cut them, unless there's a deliberate reason or it's going against the edge of the page. This one. I think will go against the edge of the page. One thing about working with different mediums to do things like this, like adhering, by the time that the piece is done, there might be a lot of different things going on in terms of finishes. Like there will be areas that look matte and other areas that look very glossy. And then what you would do for that is to get a medium, whatever you want your finished piece to be, to give it a covering over the whole thing. And when you're working with lots of little bits of stuff glued on, that's always not a bad idea anyway, just to give everything kind of a final lock in. But make sure that it's the proper type of medium for the materials that you've used. So if I incorporate more oil-based things on here, it definitely wouldn't be appropriate to use an acrylic-based medium to cover it up. But also, so yeah, using a medium that's appropriate. And also, then you can add on, well, if you're going to varnish, which is a good idea on top of that, then you do actually want to use a glossy medium. But then your varnish can be the finish that you choose if you don't actually want your work to be glossy in the end. So if I want this to be matte, not glossy, even if I covered everything with a glossy finish at the end, then I give it a good varnish that's maybe satin finish, and that give that time to cure, and then everything's like really locked in and protected, which is especially great if like you're going to plan to do it, like ship your piece somewhere or anything like that, or you know, to hang in somebody's house, for sure. And I think especially if you have any intention of doing work that would be hung someplace public at all, in a public building or an office or hotel or anything like that, then yes, definitely make sure it's well protected with probably at least a couple layers of varnish on top of your layers of your final layers of mediums. I have a little piece hanging off the edge up here, which once everything is good and dry, I will just get my little blade out and slice it down the side. I mean, I could glue it around the edge, but we'll keep it nice and neat. Which is very ironic coming from me. Okay, let me refill my coffee. And because I'm trapped in this little alcove, I brought my refill with me, as I usually do now. Where's a safe place to pour it is another question. Just do it over here on the desk. Where the computer is, you know, safe place. When I reorganized my studio and set everything up differently, I have this little blue cart, and I'll move in a second so the camera can see. This is just one of those classic carts you see a lot of people have for organizing crafts and art materials here. And I actually didn't find that I had a purpose for it. I had to use this to store all my paints and things before, but those all went in different places. So I moved it out of the studio. But then for doing the stream where I'm working over here as opposed to underneath the camera back there, to have my microphone and my iPad nearby someplace where I can see how things are going, I brought it back in and it actually works pretty well. Yes, sponsored by caffeine. That is a story of my life. Sponsored by caffeine. Very true. Ah. It is true. Coffee ruins my life. Just good old black drip brewed coffee, and I'm happy. Not much of a fussy coffee drinker. Rarely ever go to get lattes and things like that, but just give me my black coffee. And I'm just hot coffee all year round too. I don't really mess around. Like iced coffee, maybe I would do that if it's like afternoon and I'm out and about and just want a little something special, which is not very often, but yeah, every morning, hot coffee. It is the way. It is the must. The must have. Okay. So should we go crazy and do a little bit more spraying? Let's do it. All right, where did I put my tape? Where did I put my tape? Oh, there it is. Behind the coffee. Behind the coffee refill. Okay, so we're going to do a little masking up at the top, and this time I'll put a couple layers around it. Alright, so here's what I'm debating now. This big circle here goes over the leg. And down here I marked out the face, but her shoulder was back there and that got covered up. So it's just like her face is just coming up beyond the bubble. So yeah, I think I am going to mask out the leg. Because in the context of her being like floating on water, this part of her leg is not under the water. It's kind of same with the head and the shoulder. So we're going to go with some kind of logic here. At least for now. Don't count on it lasting. Okay, so start with this area to tape out. That's kind of the easiest because it's mostly straight. All right. can go through a lot of tape in the studio, because not only using it for things like masking, but I definitely use it for like taping down watercolor paper when I'm not using a there we go. When I'm not using a block to paint on. I just need to tape it down to the surface, so use a lot of tape. And so I started buying, because it really didn't cost any different, some of the colorful, I have like green, purple, pink, blue rolls. I got like a set of colored ones, I think from just Office Depot or something. But there's also, make sure this is really dry before I put tape on it, because while acrylic is quite resilient, it can pick up the acrylic paint. Yeah. And recently I've ordered some fun washi style tapes, and thus far I've used it in shipping, not to keep a box closed, but like if I wrap a painting on paper, like a watercolor, I wrap it in glassine paper to protect it, and then I secure it with a little pretty or funky design of washi tape. That's kind of fun little detail. But otherwise, yeah, I have it now for, I can tape things down and make it a little fancier when I'm going to be painting on stream or camera. And it's, you know, you don't want it to distract from what you're doing too. You don't want the colors of it to influence what you're working on. Yeah, somebody here on stream, was it Arasat or Mary Beth, was talking about being working in an office where somebody was sending in a proof on a design and they're like, the colors are all wrong, what's going on? And they finally figured out the person looked great on his computer screen, the colors were all perfect there, because he had like a red wall behind him, or it was something along those lines. But how the colors around what you're working on can really influence your work, so you do have to be mindful of that. You probably don't want to put ketchup red tape all around a painting I'm working on or something like that, right? Perhaps, anyway. Just something to keep in mind. And it's also kind of an interesting thing that's helpful for me when I'm painting live and I have the cameras on, that like step back and see it differently I can do while I'm sitting right here by just looking at the screen from the stream and see what it's looking like when it's not, you know, this close to my face, which is surprisingly useful. Probably more trouble than it's worth for doing like on an everyday type of thing, but surprisingly helpful. Okay, almost there, almost there. So I'm going to try to avoid the same thing I did down here, where you can see a shadow of the paint. When I tear off the tape, some of the spray went over. This just wasn't thick enough, covering enough space. So I will add a little extra layer or two. And then decide, I think that it'd be very easy for me to just mix up some of my dark tone and just kind of fill in those circles a little bit, just lightly. It's just like here a little bit and right there. So it's an easy fix, but it is time spent on something that, time and materials spent on something that probably didn't need to be the case. As I say, it's usually best to not make the mistakes first. That's not a quote or anything. I think there's a better way to say that. I'm not exactly a wordsmith. But just the idea that, you know, if you do it right the first time, save a lot of time and energy. There was a quote, it was something my dad used to say that was kind of a joke. Being somebody who worked with carpentry and such, all kinds of things. He was somebody who was very multi-talented in doing and making and building. But when it came to the adherence to making sure that you measure things well, it was, I cut it twice and it's still too short. It might take a second, but there have been some people that I've said that to in the context of something going on, and I just get a blank look. For whatever that's worth. I don't know what that means, but yeah, another family one, which I don't think is just my family. I think it's just a phrase out there, but it's something that we say a lot. You know, the idea, great minds think alike. It was great minds run in the same circles. And it's meant to be like the idea that, yeah, we're so smart, we're all doing the same silly thing. We're making the same mistake. That kind of thing. Coming up with our own ridiculous conclusions, whatever it is. It's lighthearted. It's meant to be lighthearted. And I don't think that, I'm sure other people say it, but usually I get blank looks. I'm sure that it's not just like something that someone in my family came up with. I'm sure of that. I don't know. Families are weird. Alright, wherever I want to put down the heaviest layer of the paint is where I need a little extra coverage of tape. So let me think, where will here or here? I'm just gonna try to be safe and put on one more layer. Just to be safe. Probably wasting a lot of tape, but if I were better prepared, I could just tape up something with my first or second layer rather than just use a third layer of tape. But I'm kind of just, you know, it's a little bit flying by the seat of my pants at the moment. Just doing, making, not trying to make everything an hour-long process. Although, believe it or not, I do try to keep being, you know, smart with my materials in mind. I don't like to waste things. I'm a big fan of reusing, repurposing. Hopefully, I think that should do. And I'm trying to decide if this will be the purple or aqua. Maybe aqua. Just because it makes sense with the other colors there, but do I care about that? I don't want to use, I have a light yellow, but I already have a very light yellow tone here and little circles up there. So let's see. Question is sort of like, how dark is the purple? You know, that's probably okay, because it'll actually kind of be I mean, there's some dark tone up here, but this is very deep purple down here, and that might kind of become a reflection of that. Yeah, we'll go with the purple. Oh, I completely forgot what I was talking about a second ago, too. Oh, about repurposing, I have, I'm pretty excited and I keep forgetting about it. But I have this cutting board, like a big cutting board. It's like this big cutting board with big handles. It's real thick. And I'd gotten it at a resale shop long time ago. And I was thinking, you know, sand it down, oil it up, use it. But it turns out that I couldn't see it there, but there is a crack in it. So it's not really safe to use for food. But I still have it. For a long time, it just sat as like a surface where we had a bunch of stuff on, like a thing. But my intention is, because for a while I'm like, why do we have this thing? Should just toss it. And then ding, the light went off. I'm going to gesso it, and I'm going to use it as a canvas. And I think I maybe paid like, I probably paid like $8 or $10 for it, because it was a real serious piece of equipment. Oh, there's tape down there, that's why. Still a piece of tape. Alright, I'm just moving my drop cloth to be... Why is it wet? Oh, I guess I did use a damp rag. Pay no attention to the crazy lady in the room. She doesn't know what's happening. Okay. That's enough to protect everything. I have it up high over the painting as well. Camera. I did my best to fit everything into the camera, but this guy's 48 inches, and I can only zoom out so much. It's like just a couple inches up in this corner and a couple in that corner you don't see. It's really mostly there. But you can't see how I have the plastic thing like draped over the top of the easel and stuff. It's kind of, it works, you know? All right, here we go. At some point, I'm probably going to go into the, like, maybe take this outside and do a little more spraying on it. And I actually like the drips that you can get with the spray paint, depending on how we use it, but I keep moving how I'm working. Apologies for that. Yeah, it's like kind of working in layers at this point. There's going to be quite a bit more that will still yet go on top of this, including some layers of dimensional things. But this is like everything that's going to go behind that. That's what I'm working on with this right now. So that'll be wet for a little while, but we can take the tape off. Try to do a more directionally conscious job of spraying as well with this time around. So I think we're pretty good. I think it worked pretty well. Tape reveals can be very satisfying sometimes. right. That's good. I'm pretty happy with that. There needs to be a lot more happening to break them up yet too, but I'm pretty satisfied with how this is at the moment. With how these parts are turning out. I think I might have. Let me see. Sometimes, you know, you go to the art supply store and you just see what they've got that's interesting. I have some of these really big, fat markers. But some of them aren't exactly markers. They're like a plastic nozzle. And I don't love that, but a couple of them actually are markers. I think I have the black one and the pink one actually have the soft tips. Yeah. So like that, as opposed to that sort of thing. This one, it does have a really wide one too. Oh, the whole darn thing just came off. There. So you just like squeeze it and it's weird. I haven't figured out how to best use these yet. And I don't know that I want to use any more of this kind of aqua color. There's a lot of that going on. Maybe, but not right now. What do they even call this? These are for sure acrylic. Let's see. I might need to. They're the kind where you just shake them and squish down the tip until the paint starts to flow. Also kind of thinking about if I might want to incorporate any text into this. Like I have little bits of paper that say little things throughout a couple spots here and there. They're small. It's like the kind of things that you need to get close to it to, like if you wanted to see all the little bits, you would see that. But maybe almost some graffiti style type larger writing is a possibility. I have in a little container, just from stuff from the grocery store, these nice little sealable containers. I have a lot of the colors that I've been using in this piece stored in here. So if I wanted to go back to work into the figure or anything else, I have it here and it stays pretty wet in there as long as I keep it sealed. So I'm actually going to grab a little bit of my color here. It's starting to get tacky because it's been a little while, but it's been here. Some water on my brush, trying to make things move a little bit, but I'm going to come in here where the paint, which barely is visible from the camera, but there's a line here from where I had this taped, where there's like just the slightest little bit of like the pink haze of the paint. So I'm going to just, as long as I have this here and the paint is still usable in there, we're just gonna bang that out. pretty quick and easy. A little correction here. And there we go. Nothing ever happened. So that was very, very easy to fix. It wasn't a huge time suck to have made that mistake, but if I didn't have this with my colors kind of already there and ready to go, it might have been a bigger deal. So yeah, work smarter, not harder. I just have that characteristic of, you know, the bull in the china shop sometimes when I decide I want to do something, which is not the best approach. I am aware of that, very aware of it. But with me, sometimes it's all or nothing. Like either I just gotta run in there and do the thing, or I'm gonna just overthink it and worry about it and never get anything done. So, you know, which one's the worst? Sometimes you just have to decide what actually does work for your situation the best. And as long as I have this out, I'm just doing a little bit more, like little spots that look like they could use a little more coverage. Might as well do it while I got this here, because this thing is about, the paints in here are about done. Like they're getting really borderline tacky. They're not going to allow me to get much more work out of them. That was delightful. Okay. Could be a good time to stop before I keep messing things up. Maybe. Or, you know, not. I am my own worst enemy. All right. Missing anything? Yeah, I'll kind of like just want this maybe to last long enough to allow me to do, just, it's too dry. It's getting too dry, but like the hair wisps a little bit. Like bring them back on top of the paint. But before I do that, I do need to look up and find out what that is and if I can paint the acrylic on top of it, or if I'm creating more problems for myself here. So we'll leave that be for now. But I mean, if I have to make some more hair for that, or hair color for that, it's not the worst thing. But ultimately, like this has been very handy to have when you know you're going to need certain shade of colors, like just variations of it for a large area that you might be going back and forth with, and you're working with acrylic paint, which dries up on you very quickly. Use a sealable container, spritz it with some water before you put the top on it. That will help it last. It won't last forever, but it will buy you a few weeks, for sure, a few weeks. So very helpful to have. Yeah, random plastic containers I save from the grocery store. This is feta. This was feta cheese at one time. It is no longer feta cheese. Do not recommend eating, but that's what it is. Okay. So, get my light back down here because the It's just very much in shadow at the bottom, so it looks very dark on camera where it's not actually very dark. And I have this character, I've talked about it before, but the uncomfortable cropping is deliberate. Where like the top of her head is practically hitting the bottom of the canvas. And her feet are very close to the edge of it, and she's hitting the edge of the canvas on this side. Like, that's all deliberate. And the more that I paint on here, the more I think that will make sense. So we will get there with those details. So now. Have anything else? I don't have anything else that I was immediately planning to tape on here. Tape. I keep saying that. It's not taping. All right, we're about hour and a half in. And I think that this is a good stopping point for today because I've gotten more of the base stuff down with the big circles. I'm going to look up what I can use on top of the Krylon paint. And that will kind of guide my decisions going forward there, and also researching, making some dimensional items that I'm going to be attaching to the canvas. So I think that we're in a good place to pause for today. And depending on how far I get with my thinking on it and researching, might pick this up again on Monday evening if I have some things prepared to keep going and really make some serious progress. Otherwise, I will likely have something new painting of some sort that we'll do perhaps in watercolor, though, like I said, I'm kind of thinking about breaking out oils further and doing more with oils. There's part of me that really wants to finish that painting that started already first, but there's no rules. I can't have 18 paintings going at the same time. I mean, I usually do. So, yeah, a good place. All right. I'm going to say good day to everybody. Hope you have an amazing rest of your Thursday with lots of creative energy and ideas, and a great weekend. And hopefully you're in an area where you can be very safe if you are dealing with a bad air quality like I have here. All right. Take care, guys, and thank you for joining me today and watching me in my little zone of chaos. Bye, and see you on Monday evening, 7 p.m. Central.